Welcome to a special demonstration of the Sysrev platform. Today we will be using RStudio and the rSysrev package to programmatically label articles with external data. Now let's get started. For this demonstration, we're actually going to use a real, albeit cloned, Sysrev project. This is a private project owned by user Ivan Perez Neri. As you can see, the team has uploaded nearly 2,800 articles. While the research team has access to all of Sysrev's filters, they wanted to be able to filter on metadata, specifically publication year. As Sysrev allows users to filter on any Boolean and categorical label, the simplest path forward was to push the publication years in the form of a categorical label. To achieve this, we are going to use a command in the rSysrev library called review. Before we begin, let's take a look at the command on r.sysrev.com. This is the r.sysrev.com homepage, where you can find code to install the package. But for now, let's go to Reference and choose Review. As you can see, we need a few pieces of information to use the review command. Mainly, we need to know which project, which article, which label, and what answer to push. Seems simple enough. So to quickly recap, the goal is to programmatically label articles with metadata that can be leveraged as filters, and the plan is to populate a categorical label for publication year with the proper information. Let's begin. Step 1 is to create the categorical label we wish to populate, but step 0.5 is to look at the data we wish to push in order to make sure we are able to capture it all. If we go to the sources page, we can see that RIS files were uploaded. These files contain the publication years in which we are interested. This is a spreadsheet containing the information that was contained in the Group 0 RIS. I used the free citation manager Zotero to convert the RIS file into a CSV. We can see that it contains the information that we are looking for, publication year, also called date. If I add a filter onto date, I can quickly see that it's only the years from 2009 to 2021. Not bad. Back to the project. Go to Manage, Label Definitions, and then we're going to create a categorical label. Call it Year, and we need to remember that text as the code will need to match. Then we needed 2009 to 2021. Save. Step 2 is find the inputs for the review command. Again, a quick refresher, we need the project ID, the article ID, the label ID, and the answers. The project ID is the easiest. It can be found in the URL of every Sysrev project, in this case 112.126. Next, article IDs. If I go back to the articles page, I can export all of the articles as a CSV. Now let's take a look at that file. As you can see, it only contains the article ID and the article URL, as well as the title, journal, authors, and abstract. Please note that the article ID is also the final numeric in the article-specific URL. If you want to actually export the label responses, then you would choose article answers or user answers, which are both CSVs. So the pieces of information that we need from this file are the article IDs, and we need to unite those article IDs with the publication years we wish to push. Step 1 is to copy and paste the Sysrev import into the same workbook as the metadata from the Group 0 through 6 RIS files, which I've done in this spreadsheet. Here are the informations from the 7 RIS files, and here's the information from Sysrev. Next, I used a VLOOKUP to unite the article ID with the publication years. To tell it what to look for, where to look, and what to return if it finds something. Let's do this from scratch. So in this case, I'm telling it to look up this title, to look for the title in this range of information, I need to say this range of information because over here is the information I actually want to return. Then I tell it to return the 8th column, which is column L, and then I say true for approximate match, and that's how we unite the information. And so now we have a spreadsheet that combines article ID with publication year. To make it easier on myself, I'm going to copy and paste this into a new sheet and save this as a CSV. We now have everything we need to start coding. I'm going to use RStudio, but you could just as easily do this on your local machine. Step 1 is to import some libraries. Here you can see my code to import the rSysrev library, as well as the dplyr library. I've also already imported the DevTools package. The next few lines of code deal with the Sysrev token, also known as your developer key. These lines of code set my developer key as my token, and then the second line tells the instance to always use that token if the Sysrev API requests one. The tokens are important as they ensure only users with developer access to your projects can actually affect your projects. Your developer token can be found on your individual Sysrev user settings page. Step 2, we need to identify the inputs needed for the review command. Let's take another look at the command itself. Project ID, article ID, label ID, answer. Once again, the project ID is the easiest as it's in the URL, in this case 112.126. Next, we need to get the article IDs and the label IDs. Fortunately, the rSysrev package has two handy commands, get articles and get labels. Let's take a look at these new tables. art.tb contains the same metadata we saw in the Sysrev CSV export. And notice that the article ID we are looking for is actually under the header AID. The same is more or less true for the labels. Only instead of showing us a project's articles, it's showing us a project's labels. In this instance, we are interested in the LID column, which contains unique strings for each project label. You'll also notice that there's a different column called short label. We can use that to grab the specific LID for the label we want, in this case, year. Let's call that test.lid. Okay, so far we have the PID, AIDs, and LID. Now we need the labels to push. For that we need to import our file. If you are using R locally, you can skip this step. And now I can import the information from that spreadsheet and put it into an entity called myData. Now the next line of code is just for reference, and it's the code needed to push just one label. Once again, the review command requires PID, AID, LID, and answer. So in this case, we would be pushing to project 112126, article 13926.836, and the LID corresponding to year, the answer 2009. Below is the code to push all 2800 labels at once. You'll notice that we repeat the review command for each row in the table we imported. But before we execute this code, let's look for any errors. And in fact, I already see some. First, we create the entity lab.tb, but then we call the entity label.tb. Next, even though we create entity myData, here we call myData1. This is a side effect of the fact that I repurposed this code. And on that note, we should check our headers that we're calling. It's a lot of text, but once again, if we scroll up, we can actually see that the column we're interested in is called article.id, not AID like it is in Sysrev. Okay, let's press execute. Excellent, the code has finished running. So let's go back to the project page, refresh, and you can already see that all of these articles were labeled just now. But let's click Show Labels, and great, we can see that they have the publication year, which can now be used as a filter. You'll notice that pushing the data did not require making an inclusion-exclusion decision, and so the research team can still review. And that concludes this special demonstration of the Sysrev platform. To quickly recap, we utilized the Sysrev API and rSysrev package to programmatically push data to articles in a project. Our current use case was to add metadata for additional filtering capabilities, but the possibilities are truly endless. Until next time.